Do 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 do. Hello, hello, mate. How you doing? Back from sunny South Florida. I'm still sunburned, actually. Still recovering from a sunburn. I always recently, the past couple of years, done a revamp of the more expensive cameras after doing a lot of testing and made a final review, which I've already done on the X-Pro3. But I spent, wow, way over 100 hours with this camera over the past 13 days in Florida. Other than walking around with my GFX50R three times, everything was done with the X-Pro3. I want to make a couple bold statements, however accurate ones, about the X-Pro3. A lot of people actually don't get it. They keep talking about the inward-facing LCD screen. Of course, I talked about that on the first end of my full review on the X-Pro3, that you could actually review images a whole lot faster by assigning, which is what I do, the front function button. For the OVF, EVF lever, the button right here, you don't actually have to take your eye off of the EVF to review the images and just half press the shutter release button to return back. And that's actually a lot faster than assuming, for example, this had an outward-facing LCD screen, which of course it doesn't, but if it did, it's a lot faster to do it my way. So, you know, the hoopla, and of course the internet always makes a mountain out of a molehill on something, specifically if it's unexpected. It's like, oh my god, I wasn't expecting that, and then everybody chirps about it. I mean, I rated this camera at 9.5 out of 10, or basically 95% in the full review that I did, and after an enormous amount of use, additionally so with this camera, I actually still stick by that. There are a lot of actually primary features to this camera that are completely unique. Obviously it's not a true rangefinder, so when I say rangefinder style camera, I actually mean rangefinder style camera. There's absolutely nothing out there whatsoever that it actually comes close to this. First off, let's start by stating the obvious that if you're a Fujifilm user, sometimes you take things for granted, but rangefinder users or rangefinder style camera users use a lot of manual focus lenses or older lenses with, you know, like $15, $20 K&F adapters. And even the Sony, the hardcore Sony fanboys will tell you flat out that the focus peaking is nowhere near as good on the Sony cameras. And I've tried many Sonys and reviewed a few, more than a few actually, and I actually thought it would be equal to that of Fujifilm, and it's absolutely not. Fujifilm absolutely has the best focus peaking out there. So with an autofocus lens, whether that be a Viltrox, which by the way is an excellent lens for really cheap, I reviewed that lens, or native Fujifilm X-mount autofocus lenses, the X-Pro3 is incredibly fast autofocus. As a stealthy street sweeper sort of camera, or an unobtrusive camera that has incredibly fast autofocus, it's incredible. I actually have more than a few Leica M-mount lenses with adapters that I've used with previously the X-T3 and X-T2, but also too with the X-Pro3 with the larger optical viewfinder, and the incredible focus peaking, absolutely the best focus peaking out there. The X-Pro3 is absolutely a dreamboat camera to use. I just was absolutely wanting for nothing with this camera. The X-Pro3 is... people just really, they either get it or they don't get it. There's a couple knuckleheads on YouTube that made some you know, nasty, bold statements, and that's their opinion, but these are also the exact same people that actually never used the camera. Someone called it a WTF camera, and that person for a fact never used it or reviewed it, and so that can certainly be so dismissed. Anyway, I think this is actually an incredible camera. The build quality is extremely, as I said in my final review of the camera, is an extremely well-polished camera. It's made in Japan. The titanium top and bottom plate don't account for anything as far as the use of the camera, and of course you're not going to hammer nails with it, so it doesn't make any difference whether that be magnesium or titanium. But you know, obviously you have the same sensor and image processing engine of that of the X-T3, but it's just an exquisite camera. this is that camera that, you know, let's face it. I owned a couple Leicas back in the day, back in photography school. They were film Leicas. I like digital cameras. However, I like quite a few Leica lenses, but their digital cameras are pretty damn buggy. And when I actually have said that the Leica cameras are slower than a constipated turtle, of course we're not talking about autofocus since they don't have autofocus. I'm talking about the buffer and the speed by which they process the image and actually store it on the media cards. That's what I meant by calling them slow. There's absolutely nothing out there that comes, you know, within 100 miles of the X-Pro3 in that sense. And no one said this before about the X-Pro3, and I've given this a lot of thought, especially walking around, you know, getting my face sunburned down in South Florida with the X-Pro3. I was like, what is this a parallel to? It's like, well, it's a parallel to another Fujifilm series of cameras, of which there's absolutely nothing within 100 miles of, and that is the GFX series of cameras. The GFX 100 is world's first IBIS medium format, world's first moderately fast medium format camera, and even the 50S and the 50R are still way the hell faster than any other medium format camera. Not that medium format is necessitated for speed, because it's damn well not. But this is also in that same ilk. It's like, what the hell are you going to compare this to? I mean, what are you going to compare it to? And the answer is nothing. You have an extremely polished, well-built, precision, Japanese-made device for the same autofocus speed capabilities. -6 EV, by the way. I mean, you're talking about taking pictures of stuff you can't even see. Most photographers don't take pictures of stuff they can't see unless it's a freaking time exposure on a tripod. So the autofocus for low light condition, not withstanding the autofocus assist lamp, let's leave that out of the picture, is already incredible. And that, of course, is very important for street photography and low light photography. The X-Pro3 is really an extremely underrated camera. People just, they don't get it. You know, they're chirping back and forth about the LCD display, which, by the way, the LCD display on the X-Pro3 is actually better, whether it be inward facing or not, is actually better than on any other digital camera that I've ever seen or used or do own. This really is an exquisite camera. It is, and there's nothing else that I can compare it to. Nothing. Stick an optical viewfinder, and you've got a lot less battery usage because you're not feeding the EVF display. It really is a hell of a damn camera. I had use of it for 4 days up in Photo Plus. Then I knew that I wanted it, but I was so damn busy there up in Photo Plus. I really was. That I didn't get you know, extremely good time alone with the camera. And after I ordered it and got the X-Pro3, which of course here it is. I like basic black, by the way. I'm really, really happy with it. I just am. Anyway, I wanted to do the revamp on this, the X-Pro3. Also, too, and I know this is probably going to come to the other Fujifilm cameras, is the customizable Q menu, where you can actually choose 4 or 8 or 12 or 16 tiles. I just, you know, the standard 16, don't need that, it's overkill. So I'm glad Fujifilm implemented this, and this is currently the only Fujifilm camera that has it. I really don't care about classic negative. I mean, if I want to make a shot look that way, I can do that in Lightroom or Photoshop or Capture One, which is all I use actually for Fujifilm RAW files. And also, too, I suggest you download Capture One. I just actually had to pay for an upgrade to Capture One for Capture 120 because Capture 112 did not have RAW support for the X-Pro3. So I had to pay for an upgrade. But that's it. That's my revamped conclusion. As strong, if not stronger, than my final review from a couple weeks ago or so. It's just an exquisite freaking camera. There's nothing lacking on this camera. There's just not. I do not give a damn about the LCD facing inwards. If I want to chimp on an image, and I don't chimp on every image, I just hit, you know, I have this set for playback, and I don't even take my eye off the display. Okay, I previewed it, half press, return to shooting. That's way faster than looking at an LCD screen, whether that be inward or outward facing. So anyway, I wanted to make this video. It's actually important to me because I've spent now an enormous amount of time with this camera. I think there's a little sweat on the back, a little dried sweat on the back cover, because it was really hot. I did most of my shooting. I ordered the 16 to 80. I don't have it yet, but I did most of my shooting with the 18 to 135 and the 50 millimeter. To me, the 50 millimeter is my favorite lens with the X-Pro3. It's just personal preference. So actually, that or the 16 millimeter 2.8 because it's so tiny. Obviously, the 16-1.4 is a way better lens, but the 16-2.8 is a cute little sucker. It fits on here nice and perfect, and a great little lens. So, yeah. You could accuse me of making a pointless video on this, but I really did want to talk about the X-Pro3 again because it is really one hell of a damn camera. One hell of a damn good camera. It's actually better than a hell of a damn good camera. And like I said, importantly, there's really nothing to compare it to. In which case, it's exactly like the GFX series of cameras. Thank you so much for watching. Happy holidays to you. It's going to get really cold tonight. And I guess I'm going to have to put on my... I have to crawl into my long johns or something, and then crawl into bed. You know what my secret pleasure is? No, get your mind out of the gutter. When it's like really, really, really cold, I'll have 2 blankets. Crawl under one blanket, and then I'll put another blanket over top of my head. Then I'll grab my iPad, and I'll watch a documentary on Netflix on my iPad. So I'm curled up like a wombat down his burrow hole when it's really, really cold. Maybe a bag of popcorn. Thanks for watching. Wait for it. Fuji.